All right, Pat. So, well, I mean, you're welcome to unveil as much or as little as you want. The Hall of Fame voting has come out. You are one of the senior BBWAA members. You're a single-digit guy, I believe.
I haven't seen this year. I was 6 last year. We'll see if everybody made it through a year every year.
Actually, how old is the number one?
I am not even sure who it is now because Sid only had it for 11 months. Sid was Seymour Sywoff had it for years, and Sid was number 2, and then Seymour died, and Sid has had number 1, but he didn't quite make a full year. So I don't know who number 1 is now. Somebody sent me the list, but I don't have it, and so I don't know age-wise. I'm 77. I don't know if I'm the youngest of the top 6 or not, but
you're a pup.
I think it was Ira Burkow who wrote a column about when he first got under 20 that it was like it's you're watching your mortality fade. You're just watching yourself. So one year I got down to 9, and that was kind of traumatic. And then it popped back up to 11 because they let some people in, MLB guys and stuff.
Bring a couple of 80-year-olds in to even it out?
Some guys who had a little more seniority than I, who were old ball riders who went to MLB, and originally they didn't let the MLB.com guys in, but then they let them back in. And then I went to 8, then I went to 6. And I stayed at 6 for a year, but we'll see. I haven't gotten the new card for this year yet, so I'll see where it is. But that's, they actually put me on a list in 1970, I think, so I could do some clubhouse stories for the afternoon paper. I didn't really start the beat till 74, but I did some part-time stuff out there in the summer because the St. Paul paper, the beat guy wrote for both papers. And when he was home, they try to get somebody out there to write the afternoon story. So then I did that a few times. So that's one of my great memories is the Ron Peronowski is opening up his mail and I'm talking to him. He's a great guy. And he got the poster that said Polish handgun on it. Then it had the barrel turned around, pointed at the guy who shot the barrel and said, use this on yourself. Some guy was mad because he flew it. That was back when we had emotions about baseball.
Twitter before Twitter.
Yes.
That's what that is.
Man, I wish if you had a Twitter, if you had a camera back then, you could have taken a photo, if you had your cell phone back then, you could have taken he said, he's going through his mail. He said, look at this one. Back then they weren't that hypersensitive. They were, especially a guy like him who was a crusty old veteran. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I bring it up because Scott Rowland got into the Hall of Fame. And
I've been voting for him. I don't know if I voted for him originally, but I've been voting for him for about 5 years.
And the way, and I don't have a vote, but the way I sort of think about Hall of Fame voting is you have to kind of go generation by generation because there's different, like there's the dead ball era.
Yes,
there's 100 years ago, no one hit home runs and Babe Ruth starts hitting home runs. I always viewed Scott Rowland as one of the 2 or 3 best, if not the best defensive third baseman of like that 20 years.
And he knocked in 100 runs about 4 or 5 times too. So, I mean, he was a very good hitter. It's, he's not a slam dunk because I think he's only got 1,280 RBIs or something like that for his career. But I thought he was a fantastic third baseman. And as some people point out, and this wasn't part of mine, but third base is the very underserved position in Hall of Fame. I think there's only 12 pure third basemen, which is the least at any position. And it is because that was always a power position, but I think he deserves it. Helton and Helton's about the same, wouldn't you say? Helton's the same case, basically. He's just right there. Is he a Hall of Famer?
It's hard when you play in that ballpark too, because it's like automatically you get dinged for playing in the 90s in that ballpark. But does Rowland getting in? And by the way, he never led the league in any offensive category in any year.
Rookie of the year. Joe Mauer had his only prize. Yeah.
Yep. Joe Mauer had 3 batting titles, led the league in on base a couple times, an MVP award. Right? Does Rowland getting in have any effect on Mauer as he becomes eligible next year?
Joe Mauer will not make it next year. It's a tough ballot. He's coming in with about 5 pretty good guys, but he will make it. There's no doubt about that in my mind now. He will make it in the year 3 or 4, something like that. You know what he needs? He needs a year like this, where there weren't a lot of, standouts on the ballot. He needs a ballot where there's a lot of guys that only vote for 3 or 4 people, and they still vote for the steroid guys. The steroid guys are going off the ballot now, so the obvious steroid guys are going off the ballot, so they won't detract from Joe Mauer's getting votes. Because some guys were complaining there for a while. 10 wasn't enough. You can vote for 10. Which is preposterous that 10 isn't enough, but he'll make it. Now, I just the standards have been lowered. There's no doubt about it. I mean, look, my God, is as an old crusty guy, I talk about the old crusty guys who would thought that. I mean, it took Harmon 4 or 5 years. It took everybody. There was never a unanimous Hall of Famer until who? Did Mariano? Was he? I
think Rivera. Yeah,
I think he was the first one. Yep. So that's. I mean, what? So Willie Mays wasn't unanimous. What the hell? I mean, it's and there weren't as many voters back then too. There was only like maybe 300 there for a long time, and they did weed out a lot of guys too that weren't. Once you were a 10-year guy, you were in, and even if you left the business, you were still getting ballots and stuff, and or left the beat. A guy like Steve Ashburner, I think he lost his ballot and was very bitter, but he was covered the NBA for 15 years.
I brought him up one time just as, not to like diss him, but as an example of like why there's too many voters, and I wish I hadn't, and it got back to him, and he was not happy.
No, Ash did get a little. Ash could get a little upset. We're okay, but we're not. We got. I think he unfollowed me because he doesn't like my politics. So.
Oh no!
I think it's a political thing.
That is shocking that takes place.
I'm not sure, but it was there was something. But we got along fine. But he was very upset when he lost his ballot. I know that. But it's the process is it does. You're right, Phil. It changes year to year. And the I think the ballot is now in the Harold Baines era, right? If Harold
Baines lowered the bar, he definitely lowered the bar.
He lowered the bar, and I was 50. Not me voting for Joe, but I was 50-50 on whether he was going to make it. But 5 years ago, but now I think he's a cinch. I mean, you look at it now, and he, caught for 9 years and won 3 batting titles, and nobody else.
9 or 10. Yeah.
I mean, it's he's going to make it. He'll probably be close the first time. I would think he'll be in the 60th percentile the first time, probably.
He played those 5 years at the end of his career where he played first base and DH'd, and he had 1 300 season in those last 5. But I wonder, there's 2 things I wonder about Mauer. If he had just played the 10 years at catcher and injuries drove him out of the game, and he finished with a 323 average, a 400 on base percentage, an MVP, batting titles, and the other thing is, and this
example A, Kirby Puckett, he got driven out of the game. Yep.
And the other thing with Puckett is Puckett had the heroic World Series and playoff run. I mean, Mauer played in 10 playoff games, had 1 double. He
had 2, and Phil Cousy called one of them foul.
That's a good point.
Hey, was that their last? Was that the first of the 18 straight losses? The Phil Cousy game?
No.
Was that
Cousy?
When did he hit?
Cousy was 09.
Cousy was later.
Yeah.
Cousy was
That's
later.
right. Yeah.
I was thinking it was at the end of 04, but it wasn't. It was.
We were 6 years into it, 5 years into it.
By the time Cousy rolled around. Okay, Phil. Yeah. Well, everybody says they never beat the Yankees. Well, they beat them in the first game in 03 and 04, but the losing streak started with game 2 in 04. So
actually, we're coming up on the 20th anniversary in a year and a half of the last time they won a playoff game. We might want to consider hanging that banner at Target Field if they haven't.
To a celebration. Bring it.
Well, they
The
brought
celebration of the last time they won a playoff game.
Show
20
them on
years
the
ago.
they brought the 02 team back in 2012, right? Didn't they? 2012. They brought them because they won a playoff series, and
That's so dumb.
and well, and then you know, they were heroic by our standards, and now
They were. They did save the Twins from contraction, but it's like, how poverty is your franchise that you have a 10-year celebration for winning a playoff round?
And I think it was more the 01 team that saved them, right?
Yeah.
Didn't it? I mean, it was more the 01 team that they kicked it up. And plus, I don't know if it ever was going to happen. I mean, Seelig, I had ripped Seelig before I went to this meeting down in Arizona. And basically, we were in a room the size of a ballroom, Bud and I alone, and there was a big table in there where the owners met, and Bud was smoking his Tipperello and making laps around and talking to me as he was making laps around. And we always got along good, but telling me how screwed up I was, and that really we were just doing this so Carl could get a new ballpark, which it still took him a while to get. But basically, I mean, a lot of it was off the record, but he was basically telling me that contraction was a crock of crap and that we were never going to do it. you know, but
hey, Patrick, you think about the stops and starts and the stunts that the Twins pulled around that time between the triad, which never existed, and contraction. And if Bud's right, and he might be, you basically duped the public or attempted to twice.
We had to do something to get your town off its dead ass. But it basically was, I mean, he was working on getting his own ball, and he'd gotten his own ballpark, and now he said, okay, let's get them one. But yeah, you're right. The triad, in retrospect, do you think that the Major League Base, I mean, we were all just trying to do something, but are they going to let him move to Winston-Salem? A Major League Baseball team. They couldn't even get Charlotte involved or, some town that actually had some population. It was the triad. Yeah.
Why not Nashville? Why not a credible city?
I don't think Nashville then was as credible as it is now. Do you? The hockey made it, but it was more credible than Winston-Salem, and I don't even know who the other two are. Do you? In the triad, Winston-Salem and a couple others. It's not it wasn't a big league option, but of course, luckily I was getting good inside information from Forcia, who ended up being a really reliable source. So
That was before the jail stint, yeah.
Yeah, that was before he ended up spending a little time in the Fuscal. But what the hell, that was what a chaotic area that was. What really happened, I think, is when Carl went over to the state legislature and they abused him, and he probably would have folded her up because he was so mad at the way he was treated when he went over there. They just, Anyway, yes, you're right. There were some St. Paul. Coleman had an election to build a new ballpark, and wasn't it Norm had he'd gotten the hockey and he was going to get baseball too, and got beat about 75% and 25%.
Where were they going to put that ballpark? Is it where the Saints ballpark?
Maybe where the Saints are. I don't know where it was.
Across the street from the X in that lot where they just built condos and restaurants.
Is that right?
Okay. And it was gonna flow the foot traffic, which actually would have been cool down West 7th Street to all those bars.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a terrible idea, but it wasn't going to work.
No, it wasn't going to ever happen. So anyway, Joe, though, yeah, he'll get in. He'll get in, but he'll have to be a little bit patient. Okay. It's not going to be immediately, but I mean, and I think the farther we get removed from him, the more astounded we become that we got a 3-time batting champion and a guy who hit 365 while he was catching.
Yeah, and the whole, I think too, like the local groundswell of frustration surrounding him was always like the national writers and out of state baseball writers were always like, wait, Joe Mauer is a controversial figure? People don't just universally believe that he's a really good player?
Okay, what year was he like the poster boy for the game.
09.
09. Yeah, 09. I mean,
he was literally on the cover of MLB The Show video game.
Yes. I mean, he was the #1 star in Major League Baseball in 09. And, you know, we were, if he'd been playing now, he'd be considered an Iron Man, you know, right? For the Twins. Yeah. I mean, he'd be, didn't his last, how many games he played at the end there? First
this is amazing. This is a great point. Here are his games played by season. Okay. And now compare this in your head to Byron Buxton or almost any player. 131, 140, 109, 146. Then he played 138 after missing all of April in 2009.
Yes, right.
He basically played every day of the rest of the year.
Yes.
137. So he got, and by the way, it's your guy Barrero led the charge on this for years, that he would miss 20 games because he's a catcher. He's going to sit a day game, right?
Yeah, right.
But like 137, 138 games, 147, and people called him soft because he missed games, right?
Well, the worst thing that ever happened to him was when they had Gardy write down bilateral. They told him to describe it as bilateral leg weakness, and somebody had a bilateral leg weakness joke the other day on Twitter. I mean, not about him, about something else. You know,
gotta block those and any jokes about the squirrel at Target Field too.
Yes. Yeah,
I love the squirrel.
And the trees. Trees was one of my first blockages, the trees. I don't know, you know, did we talk Michael Taylor the other day? Did we talk?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
Boy, is that an official announcement that we're done seeing Buck in center field too much, right?
Who plays more innings? Who plays more innings in center? Michael Taylor?
Oh, way more. Yeah, I think so. I think Buxton plays. Last year, their goal was to have him play 100 games. What?
How close did we get? Did we get to 90?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think they should.
He got pretty close to 100.
Maybe he did. And then, you know, which was a stupid. He got less abuse for having a goal of playing 100. The team having a goal of playing 100 games than Joe did for bilateral leg. Joe got more abuse for that.
92 games for Buck. The other thing too, the Mauer, you know, people were so enamored with Mauer's contract in a non-salary cap league, by the way. I get that like the contract does, if you're trying to spend within your revenue, like it does prevent you from spending, but people would constantly bring up the contract. And this is kind of like the early Twitter era too. And so I feel like you compare that 10 years ago to now, there's this huge groundswell of people that defend Kirk Cousins' contract, for instance. We're so bipolar with how we view contracts.
And the thing about Joe's is, I mean, it was a celebration in March of 2010 when they signed him, because he was going to go to the Red Sox were going to give him all the money in the world. The Yankees, he was going to get all the money. It was a celebration. So that was what was the number? What was the number?
It was $23 million a year on a 184 total.
Yeah. People wanted home runs, so they suddenly decided that he should be hitting home runs, and I don't know.
The big part about it too, Patrick, is this: the difference between Mauer and Buxton is, I think, if you recall, Mauer took a lot more immediate abuse from the mainstream media than Buxton has. Like, Buxton gets defended now more. And so I think that helps his cause. People on Twitter rip him, but he doesn't get the general abuse that to Phil's point, like Barrero would pile on Joe. Well, that's going to then translate to a different feeling a little bit. So I think there's been a seismic shift in how things are covered too.
Yeah, I mean, there is and I'm hearing a lot of it now from kind of ripping the rise trade is people. I mean, you're out of touch. You don't know anything about baseball, and which is fine. I don't care. But my basic problem is I like 300 hitters better than I like 300 strikeout guys. So that's my basic problem. But You're right, though, Phil. It's we probably treated, and we probably treated Joe worse than any star we've ever had around here, right?
And the things that he did were kind of, if you're a casual baseball fan, you want home runs, right? You want guys to hit the ball 450 feet. It's kind of boring when a guy just gets on base 40% of the time and keeps the chains. He's a chains moving, first down converting catcher.
You know what else killed him? That bunt that night in
Cleveland.
Was it here? It was here. Full house
Cleveland.
on a Saturday night, right? Full house on a Saturday night.
He booed his ass.
RBI situation, and he bunted, and rather than hit a double to left center field, and they were bad people. Yeah. I don't know. Did they even throw him out? Did he get it? I can't remember what it did, but he didn't. Well, Gardy basically ripped him after that game too, right? So
yeah,
that was not good. Wasn't that fun though back then in the early when the Target Field first opened and people were emotional about? I think that was
the good old days.
Wasn't that in 2010 when they were still good? The bunt was it in 2010 when he was still catching it?
It was after that.
And I thought when when the stadium was still full though, they were still having a good crowd. So anyway. Yeah, it was a Saturday night. He bunted, and the world went nuts. It's that's when we had enough fans to realize that the bunt in that situation was a bad play. Now no
one even knows. No one knows what's happening.
And and then they got guys still says they should bunt more. That's their problem. They don't bunt enough, and I don't know.
Yeah, that was going to solve Buxton's problems about 4 years ago. He just needs to bunt more often.
I don't know. He's an interesting case, man. They're basically announcing he's not a center fielder anymore. Like
so do you think they're going to tuck him into a different position, or do you think he's just a DH?
No. He'll play center field or DH. He's not. There's any place else you put him, the odds of him killing himself are a lot better than they are in center field when he used to playing. I love the guys. I got some guys saying. He's going to end up at first base. Oh, really? Let's put him somewhere where he's got to make quicker movements on his bad knee. That's really that's extreme. That's stupidity that's out there with people who think they know something about baseball.
And you're going to put him within 5 feet of tripping over something on every play.
Yes, a bigger object to trip over than it was. We got the bigger base.
Here's your goal. Find out what the goal of Falvey and Rocco is for games played for Buxton. Since we know it started at 100 last year. Have we dumbed it down to 75 or are we at 80? I'd like to know what the 2023 goal is.
Yes. Yeah, I think at the Friday media, whatever that thing is they have on Friday, that's okay. Michael A. Taylor's here. What's that mean for that's a huge storyline right now. What's that mean for Buxton? I mean, they're admitting that knee is chronic now, right?
Yes.
Aren't they? They're admitting that, that he can't, I mean, I'm all for it. I'm all for having a guy out there who can catch the ball and get a hit once in a while and not be Gilbert or Celestino who might run the wrong way when he gets on the bases. But, but it is we now know why Byron Buxton took $100 million instead of waited, right? If Carlos Correa was getting bounced by the medics when he went to get his big contracts, what do you think they would have said about Byron's knee? Which is actually
you can go to the Mets, but you're going to pay them now. Actually, is what's
yes, right. So, how about our guy, poor Ben Johnson? Coaching his ass off. He gets him to play. He's got this kid, Trayton Thompson, right, who hasn't played. The kid from Alexandria, right? Isn't he from where's he from? Alexandria. Yeah. Hasn't played all year. He's got him out there battling. And then out of nowhere, the kid decides to shoot a 3 with 20 seconds left on the clock right in front of the Gopher bench. I bet he wanted to kill himself. Ben, what is he doing? Why is he throwing that 3 up there?
He was feeling it, man. He's in his childhood dream. He's in the barn.
No, don't shoot. Don't shoot. Get back down there underneath the basket and try to get a rebound. What the hell was it? This is the worst finishing team in the history of Big Ten basketball. They missed their last 11 shots again yesterday. Obviously the talent is not there. Battle had a big game. They should not be. With the collection he put on the floor last night, should not have a chance to beat Indiana, right?
He's got them playing. He's got them playing hard. He's got them.
Indiana just played like idiots. They got one player, and they looked at that zone the way Patino's team used to look at the Northwestern zone. Tubby's team
was the same way.
Oh yeah.
Generations of Gophers teams have looked at that. What is that? Is there 7 guys on defense? What's happening?
By the way, they go play Northwestern Saturday, and Northwestern scoring points. I don't know what they're doing. They must have stopped playing the zone. They kicked the hell out of Nebraska yesterday, I think. And but yeah, here's the deal. About every third game, they're giving you the big effort where they got a chance to win, and then they got the followed by the extreme clunkers. So I feel sorry for the guy. He's just trying like hell. And finally, when he knew they were going to lose it, he just
get your season tickets. Get your season tickets. Buy low.
Right. If from a distance, it sounded loud in there last night, but they only announced 9, which means 6, right?
They should pump in crowd noise like the Metrodome 25 years ago.
Or the new place. The new place will pump some noise in there, too.
Yeah.
All right,
Pat, we got to run. We'll catch you tomorrow, sir.
All right. See you.
All right, there it is. Royce Unchained, everything he does throughout the week on the Royce Unchained podcast feed. See you guys.